is Spear Plumber from Robots Everywhere. Today I want to do something a bit different. I want to show you how a very simple hack can make making pesto a lot easier. Now pesto is, it's that green sauce that you can buy. It goes really well on pasta, it can go on meat. You can use it as a base to make other things. You can put a little bit of it in tomato squash and it makes a fantastic pasta sauce as it is. Well, you know the drill. So pesto genovese is the simplest pesto you can make, arguably. The problem is that it takes a long time. See, pesto means not only the sauce in Italian, it also means the pesto is in the tool. So what you would have to do is you would have to take nuts. By the way, traditionally used pine nuts. They're really expensive in the part of the world I'm in, and I found that if you replace them with half pistachio, you can buy it in a movie, and half nuts, you're golden. The thing is that you have to crush all this stuff manually. Now, one thing that's important to remember is that there is no fire involved in pesto. You make it entirely cold. However, you're not here for a cooking lesson from somebody who can barely cook. You're here to see something interesting. So, the way that you prevent yourself from having to do this for a few hours is by using a food processor, which I don't have. What I have instead is a blender. Now you can see, if you look, that this blender has been modified. There's a serial port on it, and there's a little lever here. Now the lever is simply a potentiometer. The serial port was used to program this is really old, an old Picaxe 08/Picaxe 14 carrier board that was then connected to a MOSFET that was then connected to a relay. The schematic is extremely simple. It's not even worth opening this guy up to show it to you. I will put a link in the description, but if you were to do this with an Arduino, you just, you connect an analog input pin to a pot, you connect a digital output pin to a MOSFET, that controls a relay, that controls this whole thing. I had this really small 12-volt power supply that I just stuck in the bottom here. What's the point of all this mess? The point of all this mess is to let this guy pulse, because if it can pulse itself, heck, if you want to go old school, you can even build this with a triple nickel. If you let it pulse itself, the various stuff that you put in the pesto will not just cling to the wall, will have a bit of time to come back down, thus allowing you to make the pesto unsupervised. Now, if you do this, keep in mind you're putting some stress on the rotating blade, so you want to preemptively put a bit of JB Weld or epoxy on it. That's usually a good idea when you buy these things. They last a lot longer. In the meantime, again, the circuit is super simple. You can build it out of any old microcontroller you got around it. Or, again, if you want to go old school, use a triple nickel. What does it do? Again, it lets you run this guy either normally. And you can kind of see the problem. Stuff sticks to the wall. What I have it set is that it has 3 settings. You can hear the relay click. Which I use for other things, and then I have it go 2 seconds every 6, which is good for pesto, actually. So you set it to low, you set it to stir. And it will do this. Again, the circuit and the programming is absolutely trivial. What's interesting is that this lets you make some pesto in a relatively unsupervised manner. Super easy. So you just put in your nuts. Put in your garlic. Now, peeling the garlic is interesting. There are ways to automate this. The best way would be to just put it in 2 pans and shake it. Don't put it in a dryer like I did. That didn't work. Or you can just peel it by hand. I personally find it fairly stress reducing. You put in the basil. Now, you probably want to. By the way, I wash my hands before this. You put in the basil. Now, one thing that's very important is you got to remove the stamps because otherwise the whole thing gets bitter. You don't want that. Note that in the best Italian tradition, I am giving basically no care about quantities. I am eyeballing it. I suggest you do the same. There's really no way to get pesto wrong. Olive oil. This is actually the most expensive part of the build, at least where I live. You can probably replace seed oil. You can probably replace it with seed oil, but you'd have to try around. Parmesan. It doesn't actually have to be Parmesan. It can be Romano also. Again, don't worry too much about quantities. Eyeball it. Parmesan is strictly speaking not necessary. You can just add it to whatever you're making later, but you know, that's neither here nor there. Set the timer, so 2 seconds on every 6. Low power, set it to the lowest power you got. In this case, it's stir. And what this will do is that it will eventually let everything drop by gravity. Now, one thing I did here that was stupid. One thing that I did here that was stupid was put the leaves on top. They should be on the bottom because that way the heavier stuff can put a weight on it. In this case, I goofed, so I'm gonna have to cheat a little. Now, as this thing processes itself, it will also chemically react, mostly the garlic and the basil. And what that will leave you is, so pesto, you usually allow pesto to stay, you can kind of see the stratigraphy here. You usually allow pesto to sit by itself for a few hours. What I've always been told is overnight out in the open, and a whole day if you put it in the fridge. That's what my grandma told me. So as this thing runs, it will also react with itself basically, and hopefully give you something that you can then enjoy. As to what to do with the pesto, hey, goes well on everything. Well, I guess I did have to do some of that pestling after all. Again, very simple build. This is just a microcontroller of your choice, a MOSFET, and a relay. In this case, I ended up using these guys because I had them sitting around since 2002 and I wanted them to do something. Super simple. I plan to come here tomorrow morning and have some pesto. That's all. As you see, it's working properly.